The morning air was thick with the scent of salt and sweat as the trainees assembled at the Navy SEAL training facility, a place known for testing the limits of human endurance and determination. The sun had just started rising, casting long shadows over the concrete obstacles and muddy fields where men and women would soon push their bodies to the extreme. Among the dozens of trainees, one woman stood quietly, her posture straight but relaxed, her eyes scanning the group with calm focus. She was not the loudest, not the one bragging about past achievements, but there was a quiet strength about her that made it clear she belonged here just as much as anyone else. From the outside, Navy SEAL training looked chaotic, people running, jumping, climbing, shouting, but there was a rhythm to it, a structure hidden beneath the apparent chaos. Every drill, every obstacle, every shouted command was designed to break individuals down and build them back stronger, mentally and physically. For most, it was intimidating, a relentless test of endurance that forced them to confront their fears and limitations. The woman watched carefully, taking mental notes, observing how the instructors moved, how the seasoned trainees tackled each challenge. She understood that this place demanded more than strength, it demanded strategy, focus, and an unshakable mindset. The instructors were a mix of veteran Navy SEALs, their faces weathered and bodies sculpted from years of rigorous training. Their eyes scanned the trainees with sharp precision, noting hesitation, errors, and moments of brilliance alike. They moved among the group like hawks, ready to correct mistakes instantly. A single misstep could earn a stern command, a shouted warning, or even a public demonstration of the correct technique. It was clear to everyone that no excuses would be tolerated here. She had trained for this moment for years, though most of the other trainees didn't know her story. They saw a quiet, disciplined woman moving through the warm-up exercises, her movements precise and measured. What they didn't see were the countless early mornings, the nights spent pushing herself beyond exhaustion, the mental drills she had run in her mind hundreds of times. This was not her first experience in high-pressure environments, and her composure reflected that. Every inhale, every stretch, every glance around the training ground was controlled and purposeful. She knew that in this environment, confidence was not about talking, it was about showing, through every action, that you could handle whatever came next. The other trainees, mostly men, were already sizing each other up, some whispering and joking, others quietly observing, all aware that competition ran just beneath the surface of camaraderie. She noticed the subtle glances directed her way, some curious, some dismissive. It was clear that not everyone expected her to excel here, and that fact only strengthened her resolve. In a room where appearances could be deceiving, she had learned long ago that the only way to earn respect was to demonstrate skill and resilience, step by step, action by action. As the instructors blew the whistle to signal the start of the first drill, the ground seemed to vibrate with energy. Trainees surged forward, their boots pounding against the concrete, bodies straining against the obstacles, hearts racing with adrenaline. She joined the flow seamlessly, moving with a rhythm that belied the intensity of the challenge. Every step was deliberate, every movement was calculated. She focused on her breathing, keeping her mind clear, her body ready. This was not about showing off, it was about surviving, excelling, and proving to herself that she could hold her own among the best. Despite the chaos, she took a moment to notice the small details, the way the wind tugged at the camouflage netting overhead, the unevenness of the terrain underfoot, the sharp commands of the instructors echoing across the training ground. Each detail mattered. Every observation could provide an advantage, whether it was in completing an obstacle more efficiently or anticipating a sudden challenge. In this environment, awareness was just as important as strength. She also felt the weight of the unspoken challenge, being one of the few women in a field dominated by men. Some of the trainees assumed that meant she would struggle or falter. Some even doubted her ability before the drills even began. But she wasn't here to prove anything to them, she was here to prove it to herself, and in doing so, the respect of others would naturally follow. Her mind was clear, her body steady, and her determination unwavering. As the first drill continued, it became clear to anyone watching that she was not just keeping up, she was observing, learning, adapting, and moving with confidence. While the others burned through their energy in fits of panic or frustration, she maintained a steady pace, her focus unbroken. It was the calm in the storm that would soon make the difference, though no one could predict how or when that moment would come. In this high-pressure world, first impressions mattered, but actions mattered even more, and she was ready to let her actions speak for her. The training ground buzzed with energy, the echo of shouted commands bouncing off the walls and trees surrounding the facility. Sweat dripped down the trainees' faces, mud clung to their boots, and muscles screamed with exhaustion, but no one dared to stop. The woman moved steadily, keeping pace with the group, her focus sharp. She knew this was where mental toughness mattered just as much as physical strength, and she had trained for exactly this kind of intensity. But even the most prepared minds can be tested in unexpected ways. Midway through a particularly grueling obstacle course, a senior Navy SEAL, someone with years of experience, muscles like steel, and a reputation for being brutally honest, paused to watch the trainees. His eyes scanned each person like a predator sizing up prey, landing finally on her. A smirk crossed his face, almost imperceptible at first, but it carried an unmistakable edge of condescension. Without warning, he called out her name, his voice carrying across the training ground. "You're moving too slow. Are you even trained for this?" His tone wasn't just a critique, it was a public challenge, designed to humiliate, and the words landed like a weight on her shoulders. The surrounding trainees glanced over, some suppressing smiles, others staring in surprise, as if waiting to see her reaction. The mocking tone wasn't subtle. It was meant to assert dominance, to show everyone that she didn't belong in the same league as the elite men surrounding her. For a moment, she felt a flicker of shock. Her body tensed, her mind raced. It wasn't the first time she had faced doubt or ridicule in her life, but the intensity of this moment, the stakes, the audience, the very public nature of the challenge, made it sting more than she expected. She could feel the eyes of her fellow trainees on her, some curious, some skeptical. Their unspoken question hung in the air, could she handle this? But she refused to react with anger or fear. Instead, she took a steadying breath, reminding herself of the countless hours of preparation that had led her here. Every early morning run, every grueling workout, every sleepless night spent memorizing protocols and drilling strategies had built her for moments like this. She had faced ridicule before, from peers, supervisors, and strangers who doubted her ability. And each time, she had risen stronger. She knew that her next move would define the room's perception of her. The senior SEAL, clearly enjoying the spectacle, leaned forward, exaggerating his critique. "I've seen rookies with less experience move faster than that. Maybe this isn't the place for you," he added, his tone sharp and mocking. The words were meant to shake her confidence, to make her hesitate, maybe even stumble. The other trainees shifted nervously, some unsure whether to laugh, some unsure whether to intervene, all captivated by the tension. But she didn't stumble. Instead, she slowed her breathing, tightened her grip on the rope she was climbing, and focused on the task in front of her. Every movement became deliberate, precise. She let the course test her, letting her actions speak louder than the mocking words. She knew that this was more than just an obstacle, it was a test of mental resilience. The ridicule, meant to weaken her, became fuel instead. Each sneer, each mocking word, sharpened her focus and strengthened her determination to succeed, not for the senior SEAL, not even for the other trainees, but for herself. As she moved through the obstacle, a subtle shift began to happen. The mockery that had initially stunned her started to fade in importance. What mattered now was performance, skill, and composure. With every jump, climb, and calculated step, she demonstrated control under pressure, silently defying the expectations of the man who had tried to humiliate her. Her presence, calm and unshakable, began to shift the energy around her. The other trainees, who had been waiting for her to falter, started to notice her precision and focus. By the time she reached the final obstacle, she was no longer just a participant, she was a force of competence and confidence, proving without a word that ridicule could not define her. The senior SEAL, still observing, leaned back slightly, intrigued now rather than amused. He may not have known it yet, but this was only the beginning of a moment that would leave everyone in the room reconsidering everything they thought they knew about her. After the initial sting of ridicule, she paused for a fleeting moment behind a low barrier, letting her breathing return to normal and her racing thoughts settle. Her body was still tense from the obstacle course, her muscles humming with exertion, but it was her mind that demanded focus now. The words of the senior Navy SEAL echoed in her ears, harsh, sharp, designed to wound, to make her question herself, to make her doubt her place among the elite. For a second, the world seemed to narrow to just her and those words, like they were a shadow she couldn't shake. But then she remembered the countless mornings before dawn when she had pushed herself out of bed, running through rain-soaked streets and dark trails, when every muscle ached and every step felt impossible, yet she had kept going, again and again, not for recognition, not for approval, but because she believed in her own capability. Each of those steps had led her here, to this muddy, chaotic training ground. To this moment of public scrutiny, each hour spent mastering drills, memorizing tactical strategies, and preparing for the impossible had built something that no mockery could undo. She thought about the missions she had trained for, not just in theory but in simulated scenarios that tested every aspect of her skill, endurance, precision, strategy, and composure. Each simulated mission had demanded that she push past fear, past exhaustion, past the voice in her head that whispered she wasn't enough. And now, in front of this group of trainees and elite soldiers, she understood that this was just another test, one that required not only her physical strength but her mental resilience. Her mind wandered to the lessons she had learned along the way, lessons not taught in manuals or drills but forged in the crucible of real experience. Confidence is earned through preparation, she reminded herself, not claimed through words or bravado. Strength is proven in action, not in appearances, and respect is gained not by shouting louder than others, but by remaining steadfast when challenged. She had carried these truths with her through every trial, and she would carry them now, in this very room filled with doubt and expectation. As she wiped the sweat from her brow, she allowed herself a small smile, not because the mockery had ceased, it hadn't, but because she understood something the others might not see yet, the power of composure, of self-awareness, of turning a moment designed to shame into a moment of control. Her heart, still racing, was now aligned with her purpose, and that alignment gave her a sense of calm she had never felt in situations like this. She replayed the SEAL's words in her mind, not to dwell on them, but to transform them into fuel. Each taunt, each sneer, each attempt to undermine her became a spark, lighting a quiet fire within her, not a fire of anger, but a fire of resolve, of determination to prove, silently but undeniably, that she was capable, that her presence here was earned, not given, that the skills, the preparation, the mindset she had cultivated were her weapons now, ready to be shown in the way she moved, in the choices she made, in the calm precision of her actions. And as she looked around the training ground, observing the chaos and energy, she began to see patterns others missed, the way the obstacles connected, the rhythm of movement that allowed efficiency, the subtle weaknesses in the approaches of some of her peers. All of it became clear to her because her mind was free from panic, free from the rush of trying to prove herself through force or noise. Instead, she was observing, analyzing, preparing her next moves in the quiet confidence that had been earned over years of relentless effort. By the time she straightened her back and stepped out from behind the barrier, she was no longer the trainee who had been mocked. She was someone who had turned ridicule into clarity, fear into focus, and doubt into strategy. Each step forward would now carry the weight of preparation, composure, and quiet authority. She was ready for the next moment, and she knew, deep down, that when it came, she would not only meet the challenge, she would command it. She took a deep, steadying breath, the kind that fills the lungs completely and settles the mind, and in that moment, something inside her shifted. The sting of ridicule was still there, a faint echo at the edges of her awareness, but it no longer had power over her. She realized that this was a pivotal moment, not just another drill, not just another day of training, but a defining instant where she could take control of the narrative, where she could turn the assumptions of everyone watching into respect, and the mocking words of a senior SEAL into an opportunity to show her true capability. Her eyes scanned the room, the trainees, the instructors, the obstacles. Everything seemed to slow down, as if time itself had acknowledged the change within her. The mocking seal still watched, smirking, confident that he had unsettled her, certain that she would falter or stumble. Her peers whispered quietly among themselves, some curious, some skeptical, all sensing that something significant was about to happen. She clenched her fists, not in anger, but in quiet determination. The muscles in her arms and legs, already tense from the exercises, now carried a different energy, focused, deliberate, powerful. She remembered all the training, all the failures and small victories that had led her here, every obstacle she had overcome in her life, every challenge she had met head-on. Every time she had been underestimated and proved herself, it all converged in this one moment, and she felt the surge of readiness like never before. It wasn't about retaliation, or proving someone else wrong. She realized, it was about owning her identity, showing her confidence without arrogance, letting the truth of her skill speak for itself. That truth was sharp, precise, undeniable, and it had been cultivated over years of relentless work. She knew that if she remained calm and deliberate, if she allowed the weight of her preparation to shine through, the room would witness the reality of who she really was. Her next steps were instinctive, yet fully controlled. The obstacle course, which had moments ago felt like a battlefield, now became a stage where she could demonstrate not just her skill, but her composure. Her hands gripped the ropes with absolute certainty, her feet found purchase with ease, her body moved fluidly, conserving energy while maintaining speed. Each movement radiated confidence. Each calculated step a silent message: I belong here, I am capable, I am ready. But the true turning point was not just in her movements, it was in her presence, the way she held herself as she approached the senior SEAL, who had ridiculed her. She didn't shout, she didn't raise her voice, she didn't argue or justify herself. Instead, she exuded a quiet power that demanded attention, the kind that cannot be ignored or dismissed. She made eye contact with him for the first time since his mocking words. And in that glance, the tables subtly began to turn. It was a glance that said, without words, I am not afraid, I am not lesser, I am more than you realize. The air around them seemed charged, the trainees noticing the shift in energy, sensing the change, their own eyes widening slightly. Some whispered, some simply watched, captivated by the unspoken tension and the emerging authority in her stance. Then she straightened fully, shoulders back, chin high, and prepared herself to speak, but before words even left her mouth, the room seemed to recognize the significance of this moment. She was no longer just a trainee, she was a force, poised and ready to transform perception through action and presence, ready to claim the respect that had been denied her through doubt and mockery. In that heartbeat, that split second of clarity, she knew that everything that had happened until now, the ridicule, the doubt, the whispered judgments, was irrelevant. It no longer mattered what anyone thought, because she had the power to define herself in that very instant. The moment had arrived, and she would seize it, with calm confidence, precision, and authority, ready to reveal the truth that would leave the room in stunned respect. The room fell into a peculiar kind of silence, one that seemed to hold its breath along with her, as she stepped forward with calm certainty, every eye on the training ground now fixed on her, watching the quiet shift in her energy, sensing that something extraordinary was about to happen. The senior SEAL who had mocked her moments ago, still smirking, didn't yet realize that he was about to witness a complete reversal of authority and respect. She paused, letting the tension build, not out of drama, but to center herself, to feel the weight of the moment. The whispers of other trainees had faded, replaced by the heavy anticipation of what she might say or do next. Every detail mattered, the way she held herself, the slight tilt of her chin, the steady rhythm of her breathing. The atmosphere was charged, as though the very air understood that what was about to happen would leave a lasting mark. Then she spoke, her voice calm, steady, and full of authority. My call sign is Viper 1. The words were simple, concise, but carried a weight that few could understand without knowing the reputation behind them. The name was not just a label, it was a symbol, a reflection of countless missions, untold training, and unwavering courage. It was a statement of skill, of experience, of someone who had earned respect the hard way, through action, endurance, and precision. At first, there was a brief pause, almost imperceptible, as the room tried to process what had just been said. Then the ripple of shock began, spreading through the trainees like a sudden gust of wind. Their eyes widened, jaws tightened, whispers started anew, but this time with awe and disbelief. The mocking seal froze, his smirk faltering, replaced by a flicker of surprise and something else, recognition. The realization hit him slowly. The woman he had tried to belittle was no ordinary trainee, she was someone extraordinary, someone who had faced challenges most could not imagine and emerged victorious. Her presence seemed to grow even larger in that instant, the quiet authority she exuded now undeniable. The trainees who had been skeptical or dismissive now looked at her with a mixture of respect and admiration, their earlier assumptions evaporated, replaced by an awareness that they were in the presence of someone elite, someone who had earned the right to command attention and influence. She didn't need to say more, didn't need to explain missions, training hours, or accolades. The name alone, Viper 1, carried the weight of accomplishment, the history of resilience, and the silent power of someone who thrived under pressure. She let the moment settle, observing as the dynamics in the group shifted subtly but irrevocably. The mocking seal straightened, his posture changing as the realization sank in, a silent acknowledgement that he had underestimated her. The confidence she radiated wasn't loud or aggressive, it was calm, assured, and commanding. Every movement she made, every blink, every measured breath reinforced the fact that this was someone who had faced fear and adversity countless times and emerged stronger. The team now looked to her not as an equal trainee, but as a leader, a force of skill and strategy, someone who had transformed what could have been a moment of humiliation into one of triumph. Even the smallest gestures, the steady way she adjusted her gear, the way her eyes scanned the obstacles, the measured nod she gave to the instructors, communicated authority, competence, and control. She had flipped the narrative entirely, turning doubt into recognition, mockery into respect. The room, once tense with judgment and expectation, now vibrated with a new energy, one of admiration, anticipation, and silent acknowledgement of her true place among them. In that moment, she understood the full power of her presence, the ability to remain composed, to let actions and experience speak louder than words, had given her the ultimate advantage. The name, Viper 1, was no longer just a call sign, it was a declaration, a testament, a statement that she was unstoppable when she chose to be. And as she moved forward, continuing the training with confidence and precision, it was clear to everyone that the woman they had underestimated had become someone they would never forget. The reaction was instantaneous. The air on the training ground, once filled with tension and judgment, shifted dramatically, as if the very atmosphere had been rewritten by her words, Viper 1. Whispers erupted among the trainees, low at first, almost hesitant, as if no one wanted to believe the truth. Then, as the reality sank in, the whispers grew louder, turning into murmurs of disbelief, admiration, and, for some, a hint of awe. She had transformed from a quiet, unassuming presence into someone commanding the full attention of the room, and the energy around her crackled with respect. The senior Navy SEAL who had mocked her moments earlier froze completely, his smirk evaporating, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. He had expected hesitation, perhaps embarrassment, maybe even failure, but not this. Not the calm, unshakable composure that radiated from her every movement. His eyes widened as the magnitude of her reputation hit him. He had underestimated her, a mistake he would not soon forget. The other trainees looked on, their faces a mix of shock and realization. Some exchanged glances, their expressions saying, "She's not just good, she's extraordinary." The ones who had quietly doubted her abilities now shifted, straightening their posture and adjusting their gear as if instinctively recognizing her authority. The very dynamics of the group had changed in an instant. Where mockery and skepticism had once lingered, respect and curiosity now took root. Even those who had never interacted with her before felt the shift. Every step she took carried purpose and precision, her presence commanding attention without a single raised voice. She moved through the training area with an ease that made everything seem deliberate, controlled, as if she had already visualized every obstacle and every challenge 1,000 times over. It wasn't just skill they were witnessing, it was mastery, tempered with confidence, and it left everyone momentarily speechless. The senior SEAL recovered first, his voice now measured, tinged with a new respect. "I didn't realize, you've earned that," he said quietly, almost to himself. The words were simple, but they carried weight. He had recognized her skill, her experience, and her resilience, the very traits he had tried to undermine moments ago. And in that acknowledgement, the entire room felt the shift, the unspoken understanding that she was someone not to be underestimated, someone whose abilities had earned their place at the top, regardless of gender, size, or preconceptions. The trainees who had been doubtful or dismissive moments earlier now watched her with a mixture of curiosity and respect. Their whispered conversations had changed tone. Instead of debating whether she belonged, they were discussing how she had achieved this level of competence, how her composure in the face of public ridicule revealed an unbreakable mental strength. Some were inspired, realizing that courage, discipline, and preparation could earn respect faster than any words or bravado. Even the instructors, trained to notice everything, observed her with a subtle shift in demeanor. They saw what the trainees were just beginning to understand, the difference between talent and mastery, between fleeting confidence and unwavering skill, between someone who performed under pressure and someone who commanded the room merely by existing within it. She had done more than prove herself, she had transformed the environment around her, setting a new standard for what it meant to be elite. And yet, she said nothing more than her call sign, letting her actions and presence speak for her. There was no boast, no arrogance, no need to elaborate. The name itself carried the story of her training, her perseverance, her countless hours of preparation, and her undeniable skill. The shock of recognition that washed over the room was amplified by the simplicity of her revelation. For the first time, the trainees understood something vital: true respect is not demanded, it is earned, quietly, consistently, and undeniably, through action and composure. And in that instant, they saw a living example of it, someone who had taken ridicule, stared it in the face, and transformed it into authority, leaving no doubt that she belonged, not just in the room, but in every challenge that lay ahead. The murmurs continued, now filled with admiration rather than doubt, and the senior SEAL nodded subtly, an unspoken acknowledgement that she had changed the rules of the game. She had turned a moment of potential humiliation into a defining statement of skill, presence, and leadership, and the impact would linger long after the training session ended. The energy on the training ground had shifted completely. Where once there had been skepticism, whispers of doubt, and a subtle undercurrent of mockery, now there was only recognition and quiet admiration. Every trainee who had watched the reveal of Viper 1 felt it, a subtle, undeniable change in the dynamics of the group. She had earned something far greater than mere acknowledgement, she had earned respect, not through words or argument, but through presence, skill, and composure. From that moment, the way people interacted with her shifted in subtle yet profound ways. The trainees who had once whispered about her abilities now sought her out for advice and insight. They observed how she navigated obstacles, the precision in her movements, and the calm confidence in her decision-making. It was clear that she wasn't just good, she was exceptional. Her competence created a ripple effect. Suddenly, everyone wanted to understand what made her different, what allowed her to command the respect of even the toughest Navy SEAL instructors. Even the senior SEAL who had mocked her initially approached differently. There was no longer a smirk or a condescending tone, only acknowledgement, an unspoken understanding that he had misjudged her. Occasionally, he offered guidance or pointed out nuances in the drills, but it was no longer a lesson in superiority, it was a collaborative exchange between two skilled operatives. The shift was subtle but telling. She had transformed the dynamic from ridicule to partnership, earning respect in a way few could imagine. Her peers followed her example without realizing it. The trainees began to mirror her composure, observing the way she paused to assess an obstacle before tackling it, how she remained calm under pressure, and how she didn't react hastily to challenges. Her quiet authority became a guiding force, an unspoken lesson in focus and mental toughness. Those who had doubted her started to respect the discipline, the preparation, and the unwavering confidence she carried in every action. The respect she earned was not limited to admiration, it was functional. During group exercises, the team instinctively deferred to her judgment when planning strategies or coordinating efforts. Her opinion carried weight, not because she demanded it, but because she had demonstrated mastery and clarity in a high-pressure environment. Even in moments of chaos, when others might panic or make rash decisions, her guidance became a stabilizing force. The shift from trainee to informal leader was complete, and it wasn't just authority, it was influence, rooted in earned credibility. She noticed the change in subtle ways, small but significant. Trainees who had avoided eye contact now made an effort to engage, asking questions and listening intently. Instructors nodded when she offered input, recognizing the precision and insight behind her words. Even the toughest drills, once a battlefield of egos and competition, became exercises where she could lead by example, showing the others what resilience, focus, and skill truly looked like in action. Her journey to this point hadn't been about recognition or validation. She had trained to be exceptional, to master the challenges she would face, and to embody the mindset of a Navy SEAL. But the respect she earned in that room validated something deeper. That true authority comes not from intimidation or loudness, but from consistent excellence, calm under pressure, and the courage to rise above mockery and doubt. It was a lesson that resonated not only with her peers but with herself, reinforcing the belief that skill, preparation, and composure could transform any situation. By the end of the day, the training ground was no longer the same. The dynamics had been altered irrevocably. She had not only proved herself but had also set a new standard for those around her. The team, once divided by doubt and skepticism, now operated with a renewed sense of cohesion, subtly guided by the presence of someone who had earned respect through action, not assertion. In quiet moments, she allowed herself to reflect on the journey to this point, knowing that the respect she had gained was hard-won and meaningful. It wasn't superficial, it was grounded in reality, in skill, and in the unshakable confidence that comes from knowing you have prepared for every challenge, and faced every doubt head-on. Her peers had witnessed something rare, not just ability, but mastery paired with composure, humility, and authority. In earning their respect, she had also solidified her place among them, not just as a trainee, but as a true leader in every sense that mattered. As the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the training ground, she stood quietly, observing the team move through the final exercises of the day. The air was lighter now, filled with purpose rather than tension. Respect had replaced doubt, and confidence had replaced skepticism. She had seen the shift in the way her peers interacted, in the subtle nods of acknowledgement from the instructors, and even in the way the once mocking SEAL now regarded her with a newfound awareness. In that quiet moment, she allowed herself a deep breath, letting the adrenaline of the day ebb away and reflection take its place. She thought back to the ridicule she had faced, the public challenge meant to shake her confidence, and the intense pressure of performing under scrutiny, and she realized that every reaction, every choice, every controlled movement had led to this point, the culmination of years of preparation, training, and perseverance. The lesson was clear, one that extended far beyond the boundaries of the Navy SEAL training ground. True strength is revealed not in moments of comfort, but in moments of challenge and confrontation. It's easy to perform when conditions are favorable, when no one doubts you and no one is watching, but it is in the crucible of judgment, under the eyes of skeptics and critics, that real resilience, skill, and character are forged. She reflected on how easily doubt can cloud perception, how quickly assumptions can form based on appearance, gender, or prior experience, and yet, she had proven through action what words alone could not convey, that respect is not given lightly, nor can it be demanded. It must be earned, silently and consistently, through demonstration of skill, composure, and unwavering commitment. Her journey had taught her more than technique or physical endurance. It had taught her the power of self-belief, the ability to remain centered when challenged, to transform ridicule into fuel, and to meet adversity with calm precision. These were lessons that could not be taught in manuals or drills. They could only be learned through experience, through moments where the stakes are high and the world is watching. She looked around at the trainees, some exhausted, some exhilarated, all changed by the day's events, and she realized that her own growth had mirrored theirs, though in a different way. She had not only proven herself to them but had also reinforced her own confidence in her ability to navigate pressure, command attention without arrogance, and turn every challenge into an opportunity to excel. The mocking words of the senior SEAL, once a source of tension, now felt like a distant memory, a catalyst rather than an obstacle. Without that moment, the opportunity to reveal her true capabilities, to assert her presence as Viper One, and to earn the respect of everyone around her may not have been as powerful. She understood that adversity often comes disguised as criticism, doubt, or mockery. But those moments are exactly where courage and resilience are born. As the training session came to an end, she gathered her gear, moving with the same calm confidence she had shown throughout the day. The trainees now looked to her naturally, instinctively, recognizing her as someone who embodied the principles they all aspired to: skill, composure, and earned authority. It was a subtle power, one that required no boast, no loud declaration, yet it carried more weight than any words could. She allowed herself a quiet smile, knowing that the respect she had earned was real and lasting, not superficial, not temporary, but grounded in performance, in integrity, and in the strength of character. It was a reminder that in life, moments of doubt, ridicule, or challenge are not setbacks, they are opportunities to demonstrate what you are truly capable of. And as she stepped off the training ground, the weight of the day lifting from her shoulders, she carried with her a lesson that would stay long after the drills, the obstacles, and the scrutiny had ended. True respect is earned through action, courage under pressure, and unwavering belief in oneself, and that sometimes, the most defining moments in life are those when the world doubts you most, for they reveal the depth of your strength, resolve, and character.